The signal had been singing to the stars for 17 years. Every species in the Galactic Coalition had tried to understand it. Every species had failed. They called it the Whisper. It came from the edge of known space, from a place where no living thing had traveled. The signal repeated every 43 hours. It was not random noise. The patterns were too perfect, too intentional. Someone had made this. Someone had wanted it to be found, but no one could read it. The Villani were the first to try. They were tall beings with silver skin and 6 eyes. Their minds could calculate numbers that would take human computers years to solve. They studied the Whisper for 5 years. They built special machines. They wrote millions of equations. In the end, they admitted defeat. The Protheans came next. They were the oldest species in the Coalition, with a civilization that had existed for 1,000,000 years. They had libraries that contained knowledge from 10,000 dead worlds. Surely they would find the answer. They did not. After 8 years, their lead scientist declared the Whisper fundamentally incomprehensible. Other species tried. The insect-like Kraven, the gas-dwelling Mothra, the crystalline beings called the Shard. All of them failed. And so the Whisper continued to sing. And no one knew what it was saying. The Dahan knew none of this when he stepped off the transport ship onto Station Primus. He was 28 years old. He taught linguistics at a small university in Seoul. He had never been to space before. He was not supposed to be here. 6 months ago, the Galactic Coalition had announced a cultural exchange program. They wanted to study humans. These strange new creatures who had only discovered faster-than-light travel 30 years ago. Humans were young. Humans were primitive. But humans were also interesting, in the way a child's drawing might be interesting to a master painter. Dohan had applied as a joke. His friend Jion had dared him to do it. To his shock, he was accepted. Now he stood in the arrivals hall of the largest space station in the galaxy, and he felt very, very small. Station Primus was the size of a moon. Millions of beings lived here. Dohan saw creatures he could not have imagined in his wildest dreams. A group of Villani walked past him, their silver skin glowing under the lights. A Prothean floated by, its body like a cloud of blue smoke. Something with too many legs scuttled across the ceiling. Dohan gripped his bag tighter and tried not to look scared. A voice called his name. He turned and saw Jian running toward him. She had arrived at the station 3 months before him. She was an engineer, specializing in communication systems. The Coalition had wanted her skills. Dohan still was not sure why they wanted a linguistics professor. Jian hugged him hard. "You made it. How was the trip?" "Long," Dohan said. "Very long. I think I aged 10 years. Jian laughed. "You get used to it. Come on, I will show you around." She led him through corridors that seemed to go on forever. Dohan tried to remember the path, but he gave up after the 5th turn. Everything looked the same. Metal walls. Strange lights. Doors that opened without being touched. "What exactly am I supposed to do here?" Dohan asked. "Observe, learn, let them study you." Jian shrugged. "Honestly, I think they just want to see how humans react to things. We are entertainment to them." "Wonderful." They passed a large window. Dohan stopped. Beyond the glass was a room filled with screens and machines. Dozens of scientists sat at workstations. The screens all showed the same thing, a complex pattern of lines and dots that pulsed with soft light. "What is that?" Dohan asked. Jian's smile faded. "That is the Whisper. The signal no one can decode. I heard about it. They have been working on it for years, right? 17 years. The best minds in the galaxy have tried. They say it is impossible." Dohan watched the pattern pulse on the screens. Something about it caught his attention. He could not say what. It was like hearing a familiar song in a crowded room. Just a few notes. Just enough to make you turn your head. "Can we go in?" He asked. "What?" "No, that is a restricted area. Only senior researchers are allowed." "Oh." Dawn kept watching the pattern. "It is just interesting." Jian pulled his arm. "Come on, you need to rest. Tomorrow they will assign you a schedule." Dawn let her lead him away. But he looked back at the window one more time. That night, he could not sleep. His quarters were comfortable. The bed was soft. But every time he closed his eyes, he saw that pattern. Those lines and dots, pulsing like a heartbeat dot at 3 in the morning. He gave up. He got dressed and left his room. Station Primus was quieter at night, but it was never truly empty. Dohan walked through the corridors, not sure where he was going. His feet seemed to know, even if his mind did not. He found himself outside the decryption chamber. The door was open. Just a crack, but enough to see inside. Dohan hesitated. Jian had said it was restricted. He should go back to his room, but the pattern was still there, glowing on the screens. And it was still calling to him. He pushed the door open and stepped inside. The room was almost empty. Most of the scientists had gone to sleep. Only one remained, an old Vellani with clouded eyes and silver skin that had faded to gray. He sat in front of the largest screen, his 6 eyes fixed on the pattern. He did not notice Doan enter. Doan walked closer. The pattern filled his vision. Up close, it was even more beautiful. The lines curved and crossed. The dots appeared and disappeared. It was like watching water flow or fire dance. And then Dohan laughed. The sound was soft, but in the quiet room, it was loud enough. The old Vellani turned. His 6 eyes narrowed. "Human," he said. His voice was like wind through dry leaves. "What are you doing here? This area is restricted." "I am sorry," Doan said. "I did not mean to intrude. I was looking at the pattern." "Looking? And what does a human see in the pattern?" Doan hesitated. He felt foolish. He was nobody. A linguistics professor from a small planet. What could he possibly see that the greatest minds in the galaxy had missed? But the old Vellani was watching him, waiting. "It is music," Doan said quietly. "Is it not?" The silence that followed was absolute. The old Vellani did not move. He did not blink. His 6 eyes simply stared. "What did you say?" he finally asked. Dohan pointed at the screen. "The pattern. It is not math. It is music. Like a song. Like someone telling a story." For a long moment, nothing happened. Then the old Vellani stood up from his chair. He was very tall. He looked down at Dohan with an expression the human could not read. "I am High Scholar Teven," he said. "I have studied this signal for 400 years. And you, human? You may have just changed everything." Dohan did not sleep for the rest of the night. High Scholar Teven made him sit down and explain everything. The old Vellani asked question after question. What did Dohan mean by music? How could information be hidden in sound? What was this thing called story? Dohan tried his best to answer. It was not easy. The Vellani did not understand music the way humans did. To them, sound was just vibration. It carried no feeling. It told no tales. On Earth, Dohan said, we have a tradition called pansori. One singer tells a story that can last for hours. The story has patterns. Moments of sadness, then joy, then fear, then hope. The patterns repeat, but they are never exactly the same. Each time, they carry different weight. Teven listened. His 6 eyes did not blink. You are saying, the old scholar said slowly, that the signal follows emotional patterns? That it is structured around feelings? I think so. I am not certain. But when I look at it, Dohan pointed at the screen. Here, this section. It builds and builds, then suddenly drops. Like tension releasing. Like crying after holding back tears. Tevan was silent for a long time. We never considered this, he finally said. Emotion is inefficient. The Villani removed it from our thinking long ago. It clouded our judgment. It made us weak. But that is the point, Dohan said. Whoever made this signal, they knew that. They knew that some species would lose their emotions over time. So they created a message that only emotional beings could understand. The next morning, Tevan called a meeting of the senior researchers. Dohan stood at the front of the room, his heart beating fast. He had never been so nervous in his life. Jian sat in the back. She had heard about what happened. She looked both proud and terrified for her friend. The researchers were not friendly. There were 12 of them, Villani, Protheans, and others that Dohan did not recognize. They looked at him the way a scientist might look at a bug under glass. This is the human? One Prothean asked. Its body was like smoke, shifting and swirling. The one who claims to have solved the whisper in a single night? He has not solved it, Tevan said. He has offered a new approach. An approach based on primitive emotional response. A Villani researcher made a sound that might have been laughter. High scholar, with respect, this is absurd. We have spent 17 years applying the most advanced mathematical analysis to this signal. And you would have us abandon that for feelings? Dohan felt his face grow hot. He wanted to run from the room, but he made himself stand straight. I am not asking you to abandon anything, he said. I am only saying that maybe math is not the right tool for this job. If you try to cut water with a knife, you will fail. Not because the knife is bad, but because water needs a different approach. The smoke-like Prothean drifted closer. A poet, how charming. Tell me, human, do you have any proof? Any data to support your theory? Dohan's heart sank. He did not. He only had a feeling, and he knew how worthless that would sound to these beings. Before he could answer, Jian stood up. I do, she said. Everyone turned to look at her. Jian walked to the front of the room, carrying a small device. I stayed up all night, she said. After Dohan told me his theory, I ran some tests. I applied audio analysis software to the signal, the same kind we use on Earth to study music. She pressed a button. The screens around the room changed. The pattern was still there, but now it had colors. Red sections, blue sections, yellow sections. These colors represent emotional wavelengths, Jian explained. Red is tension. Blue is release. Yellow is hope. The software is not perfect, but look at the pattern now. Do you see it? Dohan saw it. The colors formed a clear structure. Tension, release, tension, release. Building to something. Telling something. The room was silent. This proves nothing, the skeptical Villani said. But his voice was less certain now. Tevan stepped forward. It proves that we should investigate further. 17 years we have tried and failed. What harm is there in trying something new? The debate lasted 3 hours. In the end, the council voted 7-5 against giving Dohan official access to the project. But Tevan was not ready to give up. That evening, he came to Dohan's quarters. The old Villani moved slowly, his joints stiff with age. The council is foolish, Tevan said. They are too proud to accept help from a young species. But I am 400 years old. I have no pride left. I have only the need to know. What are you saying? Dohan asked. I am saying that I will give you access to my private research files. Everything I have learned about the Whisper. You will work on this in secret. You and your friend Jian. Do-hun did not know what to say. This was not what he had expected when he came to space. He was supposed to be an observer, a curiosity, not a code-breaker. Why me? He asked. I am nobody. I teach language to university students. Tevin's 6 eyes looked at him. For a moment, Do-hun thought he saw something like sadness in them. Because you heard music where I heard only noise, Tevin said. Because you felt something when you looked at the pattern. I have not felt anything in 300 years. I removed that ability from myself, as all Villani do when we come of age. We thought it made us stronger. Perhaps we were wrong. He placed a small device in Do-hun's hand. Find the song, human. Find what it is trying to tell us. For the next 3 weeks, Do-hun and Jian worked in secret. They met in Jian's workshop late at night, after everyone else had gone to sleep. The room was small and crowded with machines, but it became their home. Do-hun studied the patterns. Jian built tools to analyze them. Slowly, piece by piece, the signal began to make sense. It is definitely a story, Do-hun said one night. I can see the structure now. There is a beginning, a middle, and an end. But it keeps repeating. Like a warning, Jian said. Like someone trying to get our attention. Yes, but what are they warning us about? The answer came on the 22nd night. Do-hun was alone in the workshop. Jian had gone to get food. He was staring at a section of the pattern, the part that always felt heaviest to him, the part that felt like grief. And suddenly, he understood. He understood why the pattern repeated. He understood why it was built on emotion. He understood what the message was saying. When Jian returned, she found him sitting on the floor. His face was pale. His hands were shaking. Do-hun? What is wrong? What happened? He looked up at her. His eyes were wet. I know what it says, he whispered. The whisper. I know what it is. What? Tell me. Do-hun took a deep breath. It is a warning. Something is coming. Something that will destroy everything. And the beings who sent this message? They are trying to teach us how to survive. Jian sat down next to him. How long do we have? Do-hun closed his eyes. 50 years. The next few months were the hardest of Do-hun's life. Now that he understood what the whisper was, he had to prove it. He had to translate the entire message. And he had to do it in secret. Tevin helped where he could. The old Villani provided data, equipment, and protection. Twice, security officers came to investigate reports of unauthorized activity in GI's workshop. Both times, Tevin made them go away. You are risking your career for us, Do-hun told him one night. I am 400 years old, Tevin replied. My career means nothing. The truth means everything. The translation was slow work. The whisper was not a simple message. It was a complete document, thousands of pages long. It contained technical information, historical records, and something that Do-hun could only describe as poetry. The beings who sent the message called themselves the architects. They had lived millions of years ago in a galaxy far from this one. They had built great cities. They had created beautiful art. They had loved and feared and hoped, just like humans did. And then the wave had come. Do-hun read about it in the signal. A wall of dark energy, moving through the universe. It destroyed everything it touched. Stars went dark. Planets crumbled to dust. The architects had watched their entire civilization vanish in a single generation. But before the end, they had found a way to survive. They built a shield, Do-hun explained to Jian. A network of machines that could bend the dark energy around a protected area, like a rock splitting a river. And the plans for the shield are in the signal? Yes, but there is a problem. There was always a problem. The shield required operators. Not computers, not machines, but living beings who could process what the architects called emotional wavelengths. The dark energy was not just physical. It attacked the mind as well. Only beings who could feel fear and then overcome it could make the shield work. The architects had realized something important in their final days. For millions of years, they had evolved. They had become smarter, more efficient, more logical. They had removed emotion from their thinking, just like the Volani had done. They thought it made them better, but when the wave came, they discovered their mistake. The shield needed operators who could hope, who could grieve, who could love so strongly that they would stand against the darkness even when all seemed lost. The architects no longer had such beings. They had evolved past feeling. And so, when the wave arrived, they could not operate their own shield. They died. All of them. But before the end, they sent the whisper into the void. A message in a bottle, thrown into an ocean of stars. They encoded it with emotion, hoping that somewhere, sometime, a young species would find it. A species that had not yet made the same mistake. A species that still remembered how to feel. Duhan sat in the workshop, surrounded by screens filled with translated text. His eyes hurt. His back hurt. But he could not stop. "They are talking to us," he said softly. "Across millions of years. They are saying, do not lose what we lost. Do not become like us. Your feelings are not weakness. They are the key to survival." Jian put a hand on his shoulder. "This is going to change everything," she said. "When people find out, they will not believe me. The council already rejected my theory. Then we need to make them believe. We need proof so strong that even the most stubborn Volani cannot deny it." They worked harder. They slept less. Dawn lost weight. Dark circles appeared under his eyes. But every day, the translation grew more complete. Tivin came to visit often. The old Volani sat in the corner of the workshop, watching the humans work. Sometimes he asked questions. What does hope feel like? He asked one night. Dawn paused. No one had ever asked him that before. It is like standing in the dark, but knowing that the sun will rise. You cannot see it yet. You have no proof that it will come. But you believe anyway. That belief keeps you warm. Tivin was silent for a long time. "I remember believing things," he said finally. "When I was young, before the cutting. We remove our emotional centers at age 50. It is a tradition. We believe it makes us wise. Do you think it does?" "I thought so. For 350 years, I thought so. Now I'm not sure." He looked at the screens, at the endless lines of translated text. The architects were the greatest civilization this universe has ever known. They built wonders we cannot imagine. And they failed because they made themselves too wise, too logical, too cold. His 6 eyes blinked slowly. Perhaps wisdom without feeling is not wisdom at all. The translation was complete on a Tuesday. Dohan stared at the final section. His hands were trembling. Jing stood beside him, holding her breath. The message ended with a simple statement. Not technical data. Not historical records. Just words. "We send this to you, the children of tomorrow. We do not know your names. We do not know your faces. But we know you feel. We know you love. We know you fear the dark and long for the light. This is not weakness. This is your greatest gift. When the wave comes, remember us. Remember what we lost. And do what we could not do. Stand together. Feel together. Survive together. With hope, the last architects." Jian wiped tears from her eyes. "We have to tell someone," she said. "We have to tell everyone. The council will not listen to me. Then we go over their heads. We go to the full coalition assembly. We make them listen." Dawn looked at her. His friend. His partner in this impossible work. She had given up her own projects to help him. She had worked herself to exhaustion. And she was still standing. "Why are you doing this?" he asked. "You could have ignored me. You could have walked away." Jian smiled. "Because you saw something that no one else could see. Because you believed in it, even when everyone said you were wrong. That is hope, Dohan. That is exactly what the architects were talking about. How could I not help?" Dohan took a deep breath. "Okay," he said. "Let us go change the galaxy." They found Tevan and told him the translation was complete. The old Villani listened to everything. When they were done, he stood up slowly. "I will call an emergency session of the Coalition Council," he said. "They will not be happy. They will try to stop you. But you will have a chance to speak. And if they do not believe us?" Tevan's 6 eyes looked at Dawn with something that might have been pride. "Then we keep trying. That is what hope means, is it not? We keep trying until the darkness goes away." The Coalition Council chamber was the largest room Dohan had ever seen. It was round, like an arena, with seats rising up in circles toward a ceiling so high it disappeared into shadow. Every species in the galaxy was represented here. Thousands of beings, all looking down at the small platform in the center. That was where Dohan stood now. His legs felt weak. His mouth was dry. The weight of all those eyes pressed down on him like a physical force. He was a linguistics professor from Seoul. He had no business being here. But the architects had sent their message across millions of years. They had hoped that someone would hear it. Someone had to speak for them now. Jian stood beside him. She squeezed his hand once, then let go. The High Chancellor of the Coalition called for silence. She was a Prothean, ancient even by their standards. Her body was like silver mist, constantly shifting. "We have called this emergency session to hear a claim," she said. Her voice filled the chamber without effort. "A human named Dohan says he has translated the whisper. He says it contains information vital to our survival. He will now present his findings. The council will then decide if his claims have merit." A murmur ran through the crowd. Dohan could feel their doubt, their amusement. A human, translating what the greatest minds in the galaxy could not. Ridiculous. He stepped forward to the speaking platform. His voice came out small and shaky. "Thank you, High Chancellor. I know this seems impossible. I know you have no reason to believe me. But I ask you to listen." He pressed a button on the console. The screens around the chamber lit up with the translated message. The signal comes from a species called the Architects. They lived millions of years ago. They were the most advanced civilization this universe has ever known. And they were destroyed. He explained everything. The dark energy wave, the shield technology, the emotional operators, the architect's mistake in removing their feelings, the warning they had sent across time. When he finished, the chamber was silent. Then the laughter began. It started with a few beings and spread quickly. A Villani delegate stood up. "This is absurd," he said. "You expect us to believe that the greatest civilization in history was destroyed because they stopped feeling sad. This is human fantasy. Primitive superstition dressed up as science." "It is not superstition," Dohan said. "Look at the data. Look at the technical specifications. The shield designs are real. We can build them." "Even if that were true," another delegate said, "the idea that humans would be needed to operate these shields is ridiculous. You are saying that your species, the youngest and weakest in the coalition, is somehow essential? This is propaganda." More voices joined in. The chamber became a storm of anger and mockery. Dohan felt himself shrinking. They were not going to listen. They had already decided he was wrong. Then Jian stepped forward. She walked to the center of the platform. She did not ask for permission. She simply stood there, waiting, until the noise died down. "I am Jian," she said. Her voice was calm but strong. "I am an engineer. I have worked with the Coalition for 3 years. I know many of you. I know you are not stupid. So why are you acting like it?" The chamber went quiet. No one had spoken to the council like that before. "You are not laughing because Doan is wrong," Jian continued. "You are laughing because you are scared. Scared that a human figured out something you could not. Scared that your evolution, your precious logical thinking, might actually be a weakness. Scared that the youngest species in the room might be worth something after all." A Prothean delegate rose. "How dare you? I dare because we do not have time for pride," Jian said. 50 years. That is how long we have before the wave arrives. 50 years to build a shield network that spans the galaxy. And you are wasting time laughing at us because your feelings are hurt." She paused and looked around the chamber. The architects knew this would happen. That is why they encoded their message in emotion. They knew that older species would lose the ability to understand. They were counting on someone like us. Someone young. Someone who still remembers how to feel hope and fear and love. She stepped closer to the center of the platform. "We are not special because we are smart. The Vellani are smarter. We are not special because we are old. The Protheans have been around for 1,000,000 years. We are special because we never stopped feeling. Every war we fought, every love song we wrote, every time we cried at a sad story or cheered for someone we admired, we were keeping something alive. Something that other species threw away." She pointed at the screens. "This message is proof. The most advanced beings in history are reaching across time to tell you, your feelings matter. Your hope matters. Your grief and joy and fear, they all matter. And if you keep pretending they do not, you will end up exactly like the architects. Dust in the void. A warning for someone else." The chamber was completely silent now. Then, slowly, Tevan stood up. The old Vellani walked down from his seat to join Doan and Jian on the platform. Every eye in the room followed him. "I have studied the Whisper for 400 years, he said. "I have dedicated my entire life to understanding it. And I failed. We all failed. Not because we were not intelligent enough, but because we were looking with the wrong eyes." He turned to face the Vellani delegation. "Dohan saw in one night what I could not see in 4 centuries. He heard music where I heard only noise. He felt meaning where I felt nothing, because he still has what we cut away, what we were so proud to remove." He placed a hand on Dohan's shoulder. The gesture looked strange, unnatural for a Vellani, but also sincere. "I formally credit this human with the translation of the Whisper. I stake my reputation, my position, and my honor on his findings. If the Council chooses to ignore this warning, that is your right. But you will do so knowing that I believe him. And I have nothing left to gain from lying." The silence stretched on, then the High Chancellor spoke. "We will take a vote. All those who support further investigation of the human's translation, indicate now." Hands rose. Tentacles rose. Various appendages that Doan could not name rose. He counted them. 100. 200. 300. More than half the chamber. The High Chancellor nodded slowly. "The motion passes. A special committee will be formed to study the translation and the shield technology. The human Dawn will be appointed as lead consultant." She paused. "May we hope that he is right. And may we pray that we have enough time." Later that night, Dohan sat alone in his quarters. He was exhausted. He was terrified. And he was overwhelmed by what had just happened. There was a knock at his door. He opened it to find Tevan standing there. "I wanted to thank you," the old Vellani said, "for what you have done. I have not done anything yet. The hard part is still coming. Yes, But you have given us something we did not have before. What is that? Tevin's 6 eyes looked at him. And for just a moment, Dahon thought he saw something in them. Something that might have been feeling. Hope, Tevin said. You have given us hope. 50 years passed faster than anyone expected. The coalition worked harder than it had ever worked before. Scientists from every species came together to study the architects' designs. Engineers built prototype shields. Politicians argued about where to place them and who would control them. And through it all, the humans were at the center. The shield technology was real. It worked exactly as the architects had described. A network of machines that could bend dark energy around protected space, like an umbrella in a storm. But the architects had been right about one thing. The shields needed emotional operators. The dark energy was not just a physical force. It carried something else with it. A weight. A darkness that pressed into the mind. Early tests showed that logical beings, those who had evolved past emotion, simply shut down when exposed to it. Their minds could not process the fear. They froze. They failed. But humans were different. When human volunteers were exposed to controlled amounts of dark energy, they felt the fear. They felt the despair. It was terrible. Some of them screamed. Some of them cried. And then they pushed through it. They thought of the people they loved. They remembered moments of joy. They held on to hope, even when every part of their brain told them to give up. And somehow, impossibly, that was enough. The shields responded to emotional output. The stronger the hope, the stronger the shield. It was not logical. It was not efficient. But it worked. Training academies were built on Earth. Young people from around the world came to learn how to operate the shields. They studied meditation. They practiced emotional control. They learned to feel deeply and then channel that feeling into the machines. Korean instructors became especially valued. They taught concepts that other cultures had forgotten or never known. Han, the deep sorrow that comes from suffering. Jeng, the warm affection between people who share hardship. Hyung, the joy that rises up even in dark times. These were not just words. They were tools. They were weapons against the coming darkness. Duhan watched all of this happen. He was older now. His hair had turned gray. His face had lines that had not been there before. But his eyes were still the same. Still curious. Still hopeful. He had married Jian 10 years after the council meeting. They had 3 children together. Their oldest daughter, Selman, had just turned 20. She had trained at the academy. She was one of the best shield operators in the coalition. Dahan was proud of her. And terrified for her, because the wave was almost here. On the day it arrived, Dahan stood at the main control station on Earth. Screens covered every wall, showing images from across the galaxy. The shield network was active. Billions of operators sat at their stations, ready to fight. Selman was at a station on the outer edge of coalition space. She would be one of the first to feel the waves approach. Dohan had tried to talk her out of it. She had refused. You spent your whole life preparing for this, she had said. Did you think I would do anything less? She was so much like her mother. Jian stood beside him now. Her hair was white, but her grip was still strong. She held his hand and did not let go. The countdown began. 10 minutes until contact. Across the galaxy, operators settled into their stations. They closed their eyes. They thought of the people they loved. They remembered why they were fighting. 5 minutes. Dohan watched the screens. He could see the wave now, a wall of absolute darkness moving through space. It was bigger than he had imagined. It swallowed stars. It erased entire systems. It was the end of everything. And somewhere out there, his daughter was waiting for it. 2 minutes. The shield network hummed with power. Billions of minds, all focused on a single purpose. All holding on to hope. 1 minute. Dohan closed his eyes. He thought of his daughter. He thought of his wife. He thought of Tivin, who had died 5 years ago, still hoping to see this day. He thought of the architects, who had sent their message across millions of years, believing that someone would hear it. We are here, he thought. We heard you. We did not forget. Contact. The wave hit the outer shields first. The screen showed explosions of light as dark energy met concentrated hope. Operators screamed as the weight hit them. Some fell. Others took their place. The shields held. For 1 terrible hour, the galaxy fought. The wave pressed against the barrier. The barrier pushed back. Billions of people, feeling everything they had ever felt, channeling it all into the machines. Fear, grief, love, joy, hope, especially hope. And then, slowly, the wave began to bend. It curved around the protected space. It flowed past like water around a stone. The shields were working. Dohan watched as the darkness passed. It took 3 more hours for the wave to move through coalition space entirely. 3 hours of holding on. 3 hours of hoping. But they did it. When it was over, the galaxy was still there. Damaged, exhausted, but alive. The wave continued into the void, heading for empty space where no one lived. The cheering started slowly and then grew until it shook the walls of the control station. Jian was crying. Dohan was crying too. He had not even noticed. A communication came through from summoned station. Her face appeared on the screen. She was pale. She was exhausted. But she was smiling. We did it, Dad, she said. We actually did it. Dohan could not speak. He just nodded, tears running down his face. Hours later, when everything had calmed down, there was a memorial service. It was held at Station Primus, in the same chamber where Dohan had first presented his findings 50 years ago. The High Chancellor spoke. She thanked the operators. She honored those who had died. She praised the coalition for coming together. And then she called Dohan to the platform. He walked slowly. His legs did not work as well as they used to. But he made it to the center of the chamber. 50 years ago, the High Chancellor said, this human stood in this same place and told us something impossible. He said that our feelings mattered. He said that emotion was not weakness. Many of us laughed. We were wrong. She turned to Dohan. The galaxy owes you its existence. What do you have to say? Dohan looked out at the chamber. Thousands of beings, from hundreds of species, all watching him. He thought about everything that had happened. Everything he had lost. Everything he had gained. He thought about the architects, who had never known if their message would be received. I did not do this alone, he said. Jian believed in me when no one else did. Tivin risked everything to help me. My daughter and millions like her stood against the darkness today. They are the heroes. Not me, he paused. The architects sent their message hoping that someone would understand. Someone who still knew how to feel. They were counting on beings like us. Young, emotional, illogical, all the things that older species threw away. He smiled. We never forgot how to cry. We never stopped hoping. We never stopped loving, even when it hurt. And today, that saved us all. The chamber was silent. Then, slowly, applause began. It spread until the whole room was standing, cheering, celebrating. Dohan stepped down from the platform. He found Jian in the crowd. He held her close. Nearby, someone was talking to an old Valani. The being was young by their standards, barely 100 years old. He was asking her questions about hope, about joy, about love. Can you teach me? He asked. Can humans teach us how to feel again? Somin smiled. She had her father's smile. We can try, she said. That is all any of us can do. We can try. Outside the station, the stars shone bright and clean. The darkness had passed. The galaxy was safe, and somewhere, across millions of years and countless light years of empty space, the last message of the architects faded into silence. Their warning had been heard. Their gift had been received. They could finally rest. On Earth, the sun rose over Seoul. Children played in the streets. Old people sat in parks and watched them. Old people sat in parks and watched people sat in parks and watched them. Life continued, as it always had, full of joy and sorrow and everything in between. Dawn sat on a bench with Ji-young. They watched their grandchildren run through the grass. They did not speak. They did not need to. Some things were beyond words. Some things could only be felt. And that, in the end, was what had saved them all.